Hey, everybody, it's Jon Meyers from Write Better Together. Hey, look, everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hey, Jon Meyers. We are going to have a workshop this month on March 20th. And it is a special workshop because it is going to be about drawing from the well of your experiences.
Living a life worth writing about. Whether you're a fiction writer, creative nonfiction, memoirist, there are things that happen in your life, and we're going to teach you how to pick those moments and either fictionalize them or make them more compelling for your readers.
So, as writers, we all face seasons where inspiration is just gone. It feels absent. So, what do we do when that well is dried up? Well, like Jon Meyers was just saying, we can learn to master drawing inspiration and ideas from the well of our own life.
We're going to show you what write what you know really means.
We're going to practice brainstorming and implementing ideas from your life into writing.
We're going to have you either write a short poem or a passage, and you can meet and fellowship with other writers with a variety of experiences from across the country.
We're also going to give everybody who attends a 50% discount on a digital copy of our book, Write Anyway.
We're going to give you like a little mini workbook where you can print out. And so when the thing's over, you'll have some prompts and some guidance, a recap of the points that we made.
And we're going to give you a Write Anyway desktop background to encourage you to write no matter what.
And you're also going to get, for the first time ever, this is so cool. I'm so excited about this. You will get access to a private group, lifetime access for a private group where you can share work with each other, you can share life with each other, and you can help lift each other up.
Yep. So excited about starting that. Registration for the workshop is $39. And if you are currently a Patreon supporter or are going to be by the time you register, you will get a 5% discount.
March 20th, Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 1 a.m. in England.
To register, go to writebettertogether.com/shop and choose the March workshop. And that is where you can sign up, pay for the workshop, and then we will send you more details. We are so excited to see you all live on March 20th.
Yay.
How do we
Living a life worth writing about. Whether you're a fiction writer, creative nonfiction, memoirist, there are things that happen in your life, and we're going to teach you how to pick those moments and either fictionalize them or make them more compelling for your readers.
So as writers, we all face seasons where inspiration is just gone. It feels absent. So what do we do when that well is dried up? Well, like Jon Meyers was just saying, we can learn to master drawing inspiration and ideas from the well of our own life.
We're going to show you what write what you know really means.
We're going to practice brainstorming and implementing ideas from your life into writing.
We're going to have you either write a short poem or a passage, and you can meet and fellowship with other writers with a variety of experiences from across the country.
We're also going to give everybody who attends a 50% discount on a digital copy of our book, Write Anyway.
We're going to give you like a little mini workbook where you can print out. And so when the thing's over, you'll have some prompts and some guidance, a recap of the points that we made.
And we're going to give you a Write Anyway desktop background to encourage you to write no matter what.
And you're also going to get, for the first time ever, this is so cool. I'm so excited about this. You will get access to a private group, lifetime access for a private group where you can share work with each other, you can share life with each other, and you can help lift each other up.
Yep. So excited about starting that. Registration for the workshop is $39. And if you are currently a Patreon supporter or are going to be by the time you register, you will get a 5% discount.
March 20th, Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 1 a.m. in England.
To register, go to writebettertogether.com/shop and choose the March workshop. And that is where you can sign up, pay for the workshop, and then we will send you more details. We are so excited to see you all live on March 20th.
Yay. Welcome, everybody, to Write Better Together. I'm Jon Meyers. Hey, look, everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hello, Jon Meyers.
That music puts me in the mood to do a podcast when I hear it.
That's good. Oh, hey, we talked about that.
Yeah, call back to K-Mod on a previous episode. So, what are we talking about today, Emily Brooks?
We are talking about audiobook narration
Oh, my goodness.
with Emily Norman.
Oh, too many Emilys, or not enough Emilys.
Like our
We need
webinar.
more
where we had
Emilys.
4 Emilys. Specifically, Emily is an audiobook narrator, so she has some insider insights. What am I saying? She has
Insider Insight. That's going to be the title you're putting on this episode.
For people who want to get into audiobook narration themselves, as well as authors who want to hire an audiobook narrator. So it's fascinating. We also have quite the list.
Yay. I love when you say quite the list.
I know you do. You make me say it, so I went ahead and said it. So before we talk to Emily, we're going to have listener responses.
Okay.
Emily is going to give you all a great call to action.
Yes.
We're going to have a Hey Jon Meyers segment where I teach Jon Meyers something that may or may not inspire writing in you.
Oh.
And then we're going to play a silly game.
I don't think I can be any more inspired after K-Mod episode.
I know,
I've
right?
now, because I did the show notes in the email, but I've now watched it 3 times, and I get more inspired every time I watch it.
Yeah, it's great. But first,
Yes.
how did you get out of your bubble?
I went to a live webinar with Michael Jamin.
Yes, you did.
And he changed my life. Speaking of K-Mod changing our lives, we have very same sensibilities in storytelling, as we've talked about before. A lot of them come from Bill Idelson here,
which is in our bookshop.
Which is in our bookshop. A lot of are new and fresh, but I learned so much new. I already own one of his courses, so I'll put a link to one of his courses down in our show notes. I'll give you my number one takeaway, and then we'll move on, because there was so much. And the number one takeaway that everyone needs to know is, when you're writing, even if it's memoir, even if it's creative nonfiction, and certainly people think they can wrap their mind around it when it's fiction, but you're not writing about yourself. You're writing about the human condition, and you're writing about the person reading it. And which I know, and I knew before that, and I've vocalized a version of that on the show before. But in this episode, Emily Norman is the queen of boiling things down to a succinct takeaway. And that was a really nice way to boil it down, that you're writing about them.
I think that's great. It makes me think of what Renee talked about in episode 49, when she mentioned her love of observational comedy and how we all need to be good observationalists. Because the peak comedy, like the best comedians, know how to tell a story that's actually about you. Because you're like, oh, I've been there, I've experienced that, but nobody's ever like, I didn't know other people experienced it too. And so, yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a really, really good way of putting it.
And we do that here. People, when we go out to WriterCon or WriterFest or whatever, and people start sharing stuff with us, or like at Southern Festival of Books, when people were sharing with us, and they just start sharing that what they want to share, because they've made that connection, because it spoke to them, or a session that we gave, or a masterclass that we gave spoke to them. And that happens to Jamin after, like, when he does a performance and a book signings afterwards, people just start unloading their stories on him. And stories beget stories.
Yeah.
So how'd you get out of your bubble?
Well, I wrote about this on my blog, and I'll share that in the show notes. But I faced a pretty big fear ever since like wanting to be pregnant. I've been afraid of the glucose screenings and just medical stuff in general that I'm not going to talk about because we both share the same um, anxieties about medical stuff. So I won't go into detail, but I'll just say like I failed my first glucose screening. So I mentioned in episode 50 that I was going to have to do a second one. And I was fine. I did like, okay, I had a few panic attacks, like minor little panic attacks in the waiting room. But besides that, like, because I knew that was going to, like, there's a point where you go, okay, I'm going to be uncomfortable, but I know I'm going to be uncomfortable. And I also know that I'm in the best place for that because they know how to take care of me. And, and also I know that like I'm okay. I'm supposed to not feel great. So I was perfectly fine. I got through it. I feel like it was an exposure therapy that I needed to like, okay, now I'm not going to worry about these things anymore, hopefully. I did fail the test though. So,
Now, let everyone know, because there are people like me that don't know anything about this. The baby's okay. Failing the test
yeah.
doesn't mean the baby's not okay.
Sorry. So, if you don't know, this is a screening for gestational diabetes. It does cause risk factors for the mom and for the baby, but only if it's untreated. And so that's why they test and that's why they treat you. So, yeah, I'm not worried about the diagnosis. It's more that it's inconvenient. And also, I wanted to go to a birth center and I can't. I was risked out of the birth center, which was honestly another lesson in letting go. You know, I feel like this whole pregnancy, like, it's kind of a lesson in in letting go of plans and what you really think things are how you want things to look. A lot of other women have told me the same thing. Like they have these birth plans that you just don't know what's going to happen. So, trying to have peace with that, staying healthy, and also as of now, I am, well, as of the time of recording, I am 10 weeks away from my due date. And when this episode comes out, I'll be 9 weeks away from my due date. So
That's like 2 months almost.
I know it's crazy. I'm like, I have so much to do. So yeah,
When you're
more on my blog. If you want to, do regular updates on my blog. If you want to check that out at emilybrookswriter.com.
when your coping mechanisms don't work, cope
Yeah,
anyway.
I use my story to talk about coping mechanisms and how they're really fickle, and we have to learn how to use good, healthy coping mechanisms that are long term based rather than like, oh, if I don't have this thing, then this will be impossible.
On a previous episode, we talked about my favorite word being nevertheless, my second favorite word being suddenly. I think my third favorite word is now moving up. And as my third favorite word is anyway. Write anyway,
Oh yeah,
cope anyway, relax anyway. Like,
do it anyway.
yeah,
Do
just
hard things
anyway.
anyway. I
Yeah,
love do hard things. That's like my phrase. Do hard
do
things.
hard things anyway.
Yep. So we have a listener response.
Yes.
And listeners, we love sharing these, and so anytime you write a review or give us a comment or respond to a call to action, we will share that here. So we had a response to a YouTube video.
With
Am I
RJ
reading?
Jacobs.
So we had mystery author RJ Jacobs on, and he talked
Yes.
about the importance of having a good villain with good motivations. And because he's a psychologist,
He knows evil.
he talks specifically about the importance of not just having like villains with mental illnesses, right? So that was really important. And then we had a great comment here by, and I always love the names of people's YouTube
I
um
know. Me too.
accounts. This is Big Blue Egghead.
Yeah, that big blue egghead.
And they say also pure evil as motivation doesn't work. Dysfunction fueled by revenge or ambition, sure. But most readers are not pure evil, so it doesn't really make sense. And I Emily 100% agree.
I agree. You can't disagree with big blue egghead.
You can't. In fact, it's something my husband and I talk about all the time because we love like watching movies and kind of talking through what works and what doesn't work. And often one of the things we talk about is that villain. I don't get them. I don't get why they're doing what they do. I feel like they're just kind of like there to make things happen. but we don't know why they're doing it. Or sometimes we know why they're doing it, but it doesn't really make any logical sense. So I love a good villain. So before we talk with Emily, I want to share her bio with you all.
Oh.
She is a professional narrator recording out of her home studio in Norman, Oklahoma. That's right, Emily Norman from Norman. She
That's right.
received degrees from Wheaton College in philosophy and vocal performance, giving her an eye for text analysis and an ear for giving a nuanced performance with distinct, authentic characters. She has narrated for Big Five publishers and USA Today best-selling authors. Sounding like the girl next door, her voice is beautifully suited for heartwarming fiction, YA, romance, thrillers, and more. She especially loves narrating Christian books due to her personal faith. When she's not narrating, she can be found drinking a cup of tea with her British husband, overthinking something, chasing their 4 children around, or having a deep conversation. And I love that she kind of pitches herself in that bio because she talks in a minute. You'll hear her talk about having a brand. And I highly encourage you all to go to her website in her show notes if you're interested in being an audiobook narrator or providing services of any kind, because she does such a good job of branding herself and providing resources for her clients.
I agree.
So here's our conversation with Emily Norman.
And we're back. Hey, I'm still Jon Meyers. Hey, look, everybody, it's still Emily Brooks.
Hello, Jon Meyers. And hey, look, everybody, it's Emily Norman.
Oh, my gosh.
Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
Too many Emilys. Emily Norman in Norman. That's her tagline. You should be wading out in a brook or in multiple brooks.
Oh,
Emily.
Yeah, apparently.
Emily Brooks in a brook.
What does that mean about you, though?
I don't know. I have no idea. Emily Norman.
Yes.
I see like swaths of carpet behind you, I believe. Is that what I'm looking at? So you're in like some kind of sound recording studio. We've already told the people that you do narration for audiobooks. Tell us how you divide your time between the big wigs, the big audiobooks, and then the indie audiobooks, and then segue into that to, hey, you got 4 kids running in and out of the house.
Oh my goodness, where to start? Well, first of all, I made these sound panels. They're made of Owens Corning fiberglass covered in cute fabric. And right now there's a handyman building me a proper recording studio. So I'm really excited about that. But I mostly work with independent authors, and I don't really differentiate indie work from publisher work because the books I do, I love. And just because somebody publishes it themselves doesn't make it less amazing. So I've been really fortunate to work with a lot of USA Today bestselling authors and lots of stuff. So it's fun. And as far as dividing my time with kids, when I first started narrating, I only recorded when everybody was asleep. That was fun. And I don't know if you could know much about the process, but everything has to be silent because the mic picks up everything. You guys probably don't use cardioid condenser microphones, but they're especially sensitive. And so if the air conditioner's on, if the heater's on, if somebody opens a door or walks, you can't record. And so I remember once I hired a babysitter and I heard every single word. I was like, I can't record even if a babysitter's home. So the kids have to be out of the house. So it makes it pretty easy to differentiate my time. So I record when my kids are at Mother's Day out, or my mom takes them to her Bible study fellowship once a week. And so those are my recording times. But so it's pretty easy to divide my time. But when I first started, it was just kind of snatching hours here and there. But now I have a full-time schedule, so I can't do that, or I would never sleep. So there you go.
So on set, I'm a screenwriter, and on set, when you see a rookie or novice filmmaker, I don't know, the film school I went to, they were above this, but you'll see some from other schools. They'll forget to unplug the refrigerator, and you'll hear the refrigerator hum the entire, in any scene where they're in a kitchen, you can hear the, or fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
Yep. So I totally get that.
There's like telltale signs. You
Yep.
think, ooh. Yep.
That's interesting. And I mean, obviously, like in a podcast, we don't have to worry about that as much because I think people are just used to like, oh, well, there's the dump truck coming by or something. Like it doesn't matter as much. But in an audiobook, you're
absolutely.
trying to be so immersed that would be
Yes.
obnoxious to have in the background.
Oh, definitely. If a plane flies by, you have to like redo that line, or a dog barking 2 doors down. But hopefully with my new studio built, it'll eliminate some of those problems. So here's hoping.
And there's so many people that listen in earbuds, and so it's right in their ears as opposed to listening in their car, which I know people listen in their car too. But so yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
This is like a whole new world for me. So I'm just curious, like, based on your bio and things, it looks like you're choosing to read books that you want to read. Is that always the case? Or
Oh, yeah. I mean, so people want to hire a narrator who likes their book. I mean, who wants a narrator who doesn't like their book? That would be horrible. And there's a huge thing with authentic casting. That's a huge trend. So if somebody, I don't know, if a book takes place in England, they don't just want somebody who can do an English accent. They want somebody who's from England. And one thing I really like, because I'm a Christian, I like to do Christian books. I remember doing a business coaching session with a narrator, and he has narrated lots of Christian books. And during our session, he was wearing a t-shirt that was actually making fun of Christians. And it I didn't say anything. My feelings didn't get hurt. But I thought, oh man, how sad. Like, if I was a writer, I wouldn't want him to narrate my book because he doesn't buy into it. He doesn't believe it. So
yeah,
I've had the great fortune to narrate books I really love. Not all of them are Christian, but I reach out to authors I want to work with. And sometimes I've gotten an audition with a publisher and I'm like, oh, I don't do dark romance. Like, these are the genres I like doing. And no one bats an eye. They don't care. They want you to tell them that. So, yeah.
oh, that's really cool. I hadn't really considered that choice as a reader that you have. I'm also curious, when you were studying vocal performance, was this like the path that you knew you wanted to go on, or were there various ways that you could have gone with that?
No, vocal performance is opera. So I'm a trained opera singer.
Oh my goodness.
And,
so I was definitely thinking I have a friend who studied drama and they had to do all kinds of vocal stuff. And I was thinking like audiobook narrator or voice actor or all these things. So that's different. That's amazing.
Yeah. In my head, acting was always something that was going to be in the hobby category, not in the make a living category, because I didn't want to have the lifestyle of an actor. I kind of thought like, oh, move to New York, hustle, work a zillion hours a week, have tons of body image issues, and it's a lot of toxic environment. I was like, I want to have a family and I want to have a chill, happy life. And maybe I'll just do community theater. So I've done tons of acting throughout my life, and it's always been kind of hobby passion. But after our 4th child was born, I was like, what do I want to do when all my kids are in school? And I was like, I could do voice acting and I could do it from here and I could do it when my kids are in school. And so I just did a deep dive on how to do that and taught myself and put myself out there, and here we are. So, yeah. I don't
Wow.
know if I
So
answered
how
your
long?
question.
Yeah, no, that's great. So how long have you been doing this now?
I've been doing it 2.5 years
Wow.
since my 2.5-year-old was born.
And you've
So
already done so much. That's amazing.
yeah, I had a week where I didn't have a book booked, and that's
Wow.
it. So it took me a week to get my first book, and I've been booked solid ever since, which is insane. I was like, because I thought I'm just gonna put myself out there. Maybe I'll get one book my first year, and it was not like that. So it's been great. It's been fun.
What what's the ratio of how many people contact you versus how many people you contact now at this point after 2.5 years?
Well, um, you know, as a freelance person, you're always the one who's going after the jobs. Um, Sometimes I'll have an author request me, and a lot of it is repeat clients. But as far as that first job, it's almost always me pursuing it. So, yeah.
So, and I feel like this
Interesting.
applies to a lot of writers, but how did you start like putting yourself out there and reaching out to people and having the courage to do that? Because I feel like that intimidates a lot of people to actually ask for things.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I got a coach when I first started. I reached out to somebody called Hillary Huber, and she's a really talented narrator and a really respected coach. She's won like every award out there. And she just kind of told me how the business worked. And the thing is, people expect you to reach out to them. And so there's nothing awkward about it, And as far as reaching out to authors, I kind of view it as this author maybe really wants to know about audiobooks, and I could help them. And I'm happy to help an author, even if I'm not the right voice for their book. Um, that's why I put on my website kind of the process, because I'm like, this is an unknown topic for a lot of people. And yeah, I've referred friends to authors like, ooh, they'd be a good fit if I'm not. So I don't know. I'm always happy to help. And that's kind of the mentality I put into it. So it doesn't feel scary to reach out, if that makes sense.
So in November, I went to a session. I don't want to say what the two companies were, but they were two of the bigger. One was the number one company, and one was, I don't remember, number three or whatever.
Okay.
Audiobook companies, and they each had a rep, and it was a question and answer session. So they were really competitors, but it was interesting how much they had in common. And the number one thing that they spent, these were rep level people, that they spent their time doing was talking the author out of doing their own narration. They're both of them agreed, even though some of these authors are guest speakers, some of them have TED Talks, it's a different beast to do an audiobook. And um they they had story after story of, yeah, this guy who was a doctor who teaches, like teachers think, oh, I teach every day, I can speak, but it's a different thing. And the, story after story of this doctor thinks I can do it because I'm a doctor, I can do anything. And then they spend 15 hours and they didn't get past the third page, and they're like, okay, please do this for me. How much, so that was a big problem for them, for those two big houses. How much time do you have to spend convincing people not to do their own book?
Oh, what I say is if somebody wants to do their own book, don't do it to save money. Do it because you couldn't imagine somebody else telling your story. And if you really want to tell your own story, you can do it. But if you do it well, it'll cost you a lot more money. Because even editing, like for me to get my stuff edited, it's $90 per finished hour. But for someone who doesn't know what they're doing, it's $150 per finished hour. So even when we go, everything's going to cost more. Like getting a space set up or renting a studio, you'll probably want to hire a director. I mean, there's a lot of costs. So I think a lot of authors want to do it because they don't want to spend the money for an audiobook. That's not the right reason. Because you'll spend a lot more if you do it right. But yeah, if you have written a memoir and you really want to tell your story, I think you should. And yeah, definitely. But just do it right. Do it right.
I don't think people realize how challenging it is to read a page that's going to be whispered in the earbuds into the ear of your reader and articulate with proper diction every word.
Oh my gosh.
But it's more than that because you're an actor. And the authors are introverts and 90% of them aren't actors. So maybe memoir, like what you said, but there are a lot of people that overestimate their abilities. So I'll say that.
Yeah, there definitely are. And then there are exceptions to every rule. I mean, Mary Pope Osborne, who wrote the Magic Treehouse series, she narrated her books and they're very successful audiobooks. And I've listened to all of them because my 10-year-old absolutely loved the Magic Treehouse.
Yes.
And I was like, I can't believe she narrated her own book. She did so well. But turns out her husband was a vocal coach. And so,
Oh, wow.
like, you know, if you have the support you need, then do it. But yeah, I think finance can be like a real sticking point for authors because they're already shelling out so much for, you know, their book covers and then trying to sell their book. And, you know, it can be tricky. So I get it.
It seems like, though, I mean, audiobooks are so huge right now that having that format has got to be so good for the author to invest in. Especially like these days and depending on the genre.
Definitely. I mean, there is the audiobook industry has exploded and there's so many people who only listen to books, and then there's a lot of people who do immersive reading where they only want to read a book while they listen to it. So yeah, you definitely expand your market if you have an audiobook.
Why do you think it exploded?
That's a really good question. I think that due to things like book talk and other social media type things, reading has started to be on trend a little bit more. People have found communities and like kind of identify as a reader. And so maybe that's part of it. But yeah, just the accessibility. I mean, we're streaming everything now from, you know, Netflix to whatever. And yeah, being able to stream your books just makes sense.
You ready for a hot take question? A controversial
I don't know what that
one?
means. Sure.
It's controversial.
Oh, sure.
Do you say, and then I want to hear your answer, and then I'll get the other Emily's answer, and then I'll tell you my answer. When you listen to an audiobook, have you read that book? I read A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh, but you listen to it. Does that count for reading?
It does. And one thing
I wasn't going to reveal my answer.
So right now I have a 10-year-old who's an avid reader. She loves reading. It's her happy place. And she can easily read in her head. But she also likes listening to books. And what's really interesting is her active vocabulary is better than any 10-year-olds I've met. Like, she speaks with such amazing grammar and clarity because she's listened to good writing. But you don't hear great grammar and a large vocabulary in your everyday life. So listening to audiobooks that are well written, it actually makes you a better communicator. But my 6-year-old is learning to read. So I would say listening to an audiobook wouldn't be giving her that skill of reading that she would need. So yes, listening to an audiobook counts, but I definitely think people should learn to read with their eyes, as we're struggling to teach her to read. So
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that a lot of people have in mind their like elementary experience carrying through their whole lives, where they think that it's cheating to listen to a book. And it's not. It's you totally read that book. I actually met someone recently, and I can't remember who it was. I'm like trying to think back, but it was somebody said, we were like, "Do you read?" And he or she was like, "No, I don't read. But I do listen occasionally to some biographies." And I'm like, yeah, that counts. You
that
definitely
totally
read.
counts.
What
That's so
triggered my
funny.
question was there was this guy on the radio yesterday, an author, a best-selling author, who said it doesn't count. And I won't name him, but he's wrong. It's totally you read that book, and maybe your favorite author has, I don't know, 50 books, and you read half of them and the other half you listened to in the car. You read all 50. You know the work of that author. And
The
sorry,
information
best-selling
got into
person.
your head.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's so funny
100%.
because usually I can see both sides to a thing, but whenever this topic comes up, I'm like, I don't understand why there's another side to this.
Yeah.
I agree. Emily Norman, you don't know this, but Emily Brooks is on her way to 4 children. She has her first
Wow.
one.
Oh,
She has her
We're
first
on my
one.
way to one.
She has her first one inside her right now as
that
we're
is scary
talking.
math.
Yeah.
When it's
As
time.
we're talking to her. And so did you listen to audiobooks while you were pregnant? And do you think that the child knows that you did?
Me?
Yes.
I don't remember.
Oh man.
You know, I think I did listen to audiobooks when I was pregnant. I just remember binge watching Call the Midwife every time I was pregnant. And it's the worst.
Why would
thing.
you do that?
I know. I know. I think it just made me feel really grateful for like not
Modern
being
medicine.
in a very poor district of England with very scary complications.
It's funny because I actually have been like, oh, I want to watch that. I've seen it before, but I was like, I'm going to wait until after I've had the baby. But I have been listening to Brandon Sanderson, and he always has the same reader. So I'm like getting the baby used to hearing Kate reading and Michael Kramer.
That's so cool.
and the whatever the pros of Brandon Sanderson.
The pros of Brandon Sanderson.
So that brings up an interesting question. Are there, not the celebrity author, but are there celebrity voice artists who read from different authors? And so you said people ask for you. Are there people who just really want that name that Emily Brooks just said, that really want them to? Are there celebrity voice
like within the voice actor community?
Yeah. Do you?
Oh
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
Like
Tell
Julia
us.
Whalen is a very requested name. Like you said, Kate Redding, Michael Kramer. Yeah, there's also let's see, Golden Voices. There's I think 20 people who have been named Golden Voices.
Oh.
I don't know all 20 of them, but like January Lavoie is one. She's one of my favorites. But yeah, there's definitely favorite narrators for sure, especially in certain genres.
Wow.
I'm a fan of Jim Dale.
Oh, I mean,
so good. I mean, I didn't even read.
So good.
Okay, I didn't like pick up a physical copy of Harry Potter because why would you if you have Jim Dale read it to you?
I love Jim Dale.
Yeah, Jim Dale's great.
So do you look up, are there people that you, Emily Norman, look up to?
Oh yeah. But it's really important. I have to remember to keep my own voice. Because I think that one thing that people can fall into is imitation. And I could do a Julia Whalen impression. I could pick up a book and read like I'm Julia Whalen, but she's going to do it better than me. but I'm the only person who can read like Emily Norman. And so I think that sometimes I have to stop listening for a while just to make sure that I'm connecting to the book like myself and not trying to be somebody else, if that makes any sort of sense. I know that's kind of like a loosey-goosey answer.
No, that makes so much sense, because I feel like writers have the same thing where you can so easily start mimicking the writers that you're reading. And I had never really considered that it would go both, like that it would be the same for the reader.
Oh yeah, definitely. I took an acting class once, and I just loved it so much because the teacher said, like, you go into the audition and you be you, and you're going to do it better than anybody else, because you'll be you better than anybody else could be you, if that makes any sort of sense. So yeah, you bring yourself to everything that you narrate, even if it's in a totally different situation. Like, what would Emily Norman be like if this was my life? And that's how you have to approach it.
See, Emily Brooks and I, we taught a masterclass in podcasting and starting your own podcast. And like, why would the world need another podcast, right? There's 4 bazillion, but there's only one that you can do, right?
Mhm.
And we say that to authors about, we talk to so many authors who they have 10 books in the drawer and they haven't done anything with them yet, or like creative nonfiction and stuff. But who needs another book about whatever this topic is? Well, there's only one that you can do about that topic. And so that's in total alignment with what you were talking about. Have you been to WriterCon? Have I seen you before?
Me?
Yeah.
No, because I
Okay.
have 4 young kids. It's a great opportunity to network. I'm actually attending my first in-person event in April. So I gave my husband a year notice.
Oh,
So
nice.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm really pumped.
Yeah, I've been to WriterCon 3. This will be the 4th time, and then Emily's been there once. So what's this event that you're going to?
Oh, I'm going to do something called Audiobooks at Sea, and it's a cruise, but it's an audiobook workshop. So there's going to be like tons. There's 90 narrators and several coaches, several publishers present. So it's going to be so fun, and I'm trying not to hyperventilate. My introvert self is like, I hope people talk to me, but I hope it's fun and not scary.
That's awesome.
So you need to read my article. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
About why not to call it networking, first of all, and why introverts can capitalize on things like this. So it's this April or in a year from April?
No, it's in a month. But they announced it a year ago, and I was like,
gotcha.
Hey. My husband does really well with notice. So it's like, this is a lot of notice. But yeah, I'm jazzed. And so what was this article? Like, what was
So it was speaking of WriterCon, it was in WriterCon last September, I think. And so yeah, it addresses, I don't know, a third of it, maybe less than half, but 40% of it addresses why introverts need to do this. And I don't like the word networking. It's just connecting with other people.
Connecting.
It's just standing there and connecting with other people.
Being a person.
It's being yourself.
Yeah. That's good.
And so I'm pivoting a little bit here, but how young is your youngest kid?
2.5. So I remember my first walk with my newborn, and you'll totally know what I'm talking about, Emily. Like, the first time you get outside with your newborn is kind of like a thing. But I just remember thinking, like, what am I going to do when he's in school? Mm-hmm. And I thought, I want to do voice acting. And so I was looking it up, because it takes such a long time to break into the industry typically. But so yeah, that's when I started looking into it.
And then, so how many hours do you work a week? And they're in school full time?
So I have 4 kids. 2 are in school full time, and then 2 are at home, but they have like Mother's Day out and
Yeah.
things like that. The thing about narrating is it's so intense and laborious that you can't do it from 9 to 5. Like there's no way somebody could talk from 9 to 5 and be like engaging with the text, and it's too much. So I try to get probably 3 to 4 hours of recording done 5 days a week, something like that. So
That makes a lot of sense. I feel like, and that's true of a lot of creative work, but especially there's actually a physical thing going on too when you're narrating. Like,
oh yeah.
anytime I've had to speak or anything like that, my jaw starts hurting. And you
Yeah.
realize like this is actually like physical labor at some point.
Yeah, it is.
Those two reps from the two big places, they said the same thing. They're like, there are people that are new that want to push through and do more, and they're like, no, we know what we're talking about. Your limit's 4 hours, 4 hours a day, and you need to plan 12 days for this book or 18 days for this book or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
because they know what they're doing. And they both could point to examples where people ignored their advice and the voice is weaker towards the end of the book.
Yeah, there's such a steep learning curve with this job, and a lot of it is vocal health and stamina and all these different things that you learn. Like one huge thing I learned was that there's a muscle in the back that's connected to the voice. And if you don't work this out first, you're going to lose your voice. It's just like one of those like,
What?
who would have known that? But like, who talks for 5 hours in a row without stopping? So you just kind of have to
Wow.
like learn these little tricks, I guess.
I want to know like what considerations do authors need to be making when they're choosing a narrator for their book?
Great question. So I think the number one thing is getting the right voice. So you want to look at the protagonist of your story. If your protagonist is a 12-year-old girl, don't get Tom Hanks to narrate it. Like you want somebody who sounds like the voice of the story. And I think it's really hard because sometimes authors have heard a certain book and they fall in love with a certain voice, but you have to know, is this the right voice for my book? And as far as vetting a narrator goes, there are brilliant narrators who haven't done more than a handful of books. But if I was an author, I'd want a narrator who'd done 20 or more, because there is a steep learning curve. And yeah, we're all freelance. And so there's a lot of different cats out there. Yeah, I would want somebody who responded quickly and professionally, and who had a website, I'd look at their Audible page, see if the kinds of books they do match with the kind of books you want to do and that you've done. What else do you want to know? What kind of things?
Well, I saw on your website that you do a sample for your clients, and is that pretty typical of a narrator that they would do a sample?
Oh, totally. I mean, if you, there's a website called acx.com, and that's where a lot of indie authors go to post their book for a public audition. And they can do things like they say what rate they're willing to do, and they include a short sample of the book, like a page or two. And they'll get auditions submitted. And so that would be one way to do it. But I think also, if you're listening to the sample, close your eyes and see if you can picture what's happening, because that would be the best indication of whether the narrator is good at telling a story. Like if it's describing, a beautiful lake, do you see the lake? Do you see the trees? Do you smell the dirt? Like, how in the story are you when you're listening to this narrator? Because it's not just about how their voice sounds.
Mm.
It's, do they transport you to the place? So that's how I would, if I was an author, that's what I would do in picking a narrator. Do they transport you? And also listen to background noise. See, do I hear a washing machine? Do I how good is their sound quality?
Mhm.
So yeah, that kind of stuff.
It's interesting that on your website, when you mentioned rate, that there's actually a formula, right? Like
Yeah.
a loose, a loose, but not so loose formula. And you had a link to where there's like an industry norm.
Yeah.
And I find that all interesting because it's what other area in publishing are is, it's not a minimum wage, but you know what I mean? What other area in publishing, like if you were to contract someone to do a cover, you could have a $5,000 cover, you could have a $50 cover, and
Wow.
so and everything in between. And so it's interesting that narrators kind of fall into this. Talk about that. They kind of fall into this window.
So I will say that most books that are posted on acx.com do not meet the minimum requirement. A lot of people post a book for $50 per finished hour, and that's like working for $2 an hour. Like that's what you're asking your narrator to do. And because after all the prep and all the editing and everything else, like it's a tremendous amount of work. But if somebody's building their resume, maybe it's their first book, they might be happy to take that. But I don't know. I think it's tricky. I personally, if I talk to an author, I say, even if you do a royalty share book, pay for the editing. Like, do royalty share for the narrator's time, but then pay for the narrator's editor, because I don't know, that just seems fair. But yeah, there is a large scale of normal, but a lot of authors don't pay the normal scale. Everything's negotiable. So
How did that norm come to be? Where you said, like, there's an industry norm, click here and look at it. How did
yeah,
that come to be?
part of it's from the union. So they're like, Oklahoma is a right to work state, so I don't have to join SAG-AFTRA, even though I'm eligible. But like the union kind of says, hey, this is the industry minimum. And so anybody who's a signatory needs to pay that. So, but when it's the Wild West of independent authors, anything can happen.
So that's how it is with screenwriting. There's WGA standard, or not standards, but minimums. But when you're an indie producer, can pay whatever they want, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so, interesting.
But I also think, like, if you don't think the book will make the money back, then maybe it's not time to do an audiobook. But if you're willing to market it, and if you're willing to put yourself out there and, pay for the BookBub ads and Facebook ads and Chirp and all that stuff, like if you're willing to make your book a success, because you've done the hard work of writing it, that's the hardest thing. But if you're willing to market it and do that uncomfortable work, then yeah, maybe you should do an audiobook. But yeah.
Do you look at the authors, how many eyeballs they have on Insta, and how many followers they have there? Do you look at all that?
I look at how many ratings they have on Amazon.
Oh.
Yeah. I won't reach out to, well, I say that. It depends on the category. Like, I'll typically, if they have 500 plus ratings, I would reach out. But a lot of books I've done have 2,000 plus ratings, so I know that they'll make their money back, no problem.
Interesting.
I think it's interesting too what you talk about on your website with distribution and the exclusive versus non-exclusive. If you want to talk about that for the Amazon.
Yeah. So how it works is if you do exclusive distribution, which means your book is only available on Audible and Apple Books, every time you sell a book, you'll get 40% of what that book sold for. If it sold for, oh, I can't do math. You can figure that out. But I'm an actor, not a mathematician. It's pathetic. And if you do non-exclusive, so your book would be available everywhere, libraries, blah, 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 blah. I don't even know where you can have your book available. On your website, YouTube, whatever. You'll only get 25% of the cost of the book if it sells on Audible or Apple Books. So that's what I suggest is, since Audible's the biggest source of sales, start off with exclusive, and once sales taper off, you just send an email that says I want to go to wide distribution, and it takes 90 days, and then they'll switch you to wide distribution. So that's what I recommend. If you want to do wide, at least start off with exclusive. Am I speaking Greek? Does this make sense? You can just play the system a little bit.
It seems like all of that would be true for publishing a book on Amazon as well, like a physical book as well, with the distribution options.
We already know which genres you won't do and which genres you prefer. What happens when someone approaches you and it's not like something evil, it's just something you don't want to do? What
That doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen?
Not really. There's only one book that a publisher reached out to me about, and I was like, oh, as it turns out, I don't do that. So yeah, that's it. Most of the time, since I'm the one who's like initiating everything, and
that's true.
I'm also big on branding. So I want to click on my Audible page and have a story that's told when you see the books that I do. And just like, even like the colors on my website, the wording, everything, like it all, I hope, tells a story. And so, yeah, narrators have to brand themselves, and then people think of them for certain things. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so you wouldn't reach out to someone that you wouldn't initially thought fit with your brand.
Not really. No.
Does every book that you narrate, do you do it in order from beginning to end? Or do you ever
yes.
Interesting.
But I read it first. Like, I will read the whole book with my eyeballs first. And I research pronunciations. Anytime I don't know how to pronounce a word or don't know what a word means, I look it up. And yeah. So yeah, you have to do lots of research.
I wouldn't have considered that, but it makes so much sense that you would want to have the whole book, like knowledge of the whole book before you start reading it.
Or like, oh, in chapter 20, somebody speaks with an Israeli accent. I better go learn that before I get to chapter 20.
I get there.
Oh my goodness.
Makes total sense. Well, so what triggered my question was, there's actually a second question, but I was thinking, so I'm thinking of like creative nonfiction, David Sedaris thing, where it's 20 separate stories, right? That aren't, there's a through line, there's a thread through them, but they're not really related to each other. And so as a writer, when I outline, if I have to write a scene where someone dies or something that is very traumatic for me, I save that for where I have a whole day, right? But if I only got an hour, I'm not going to write that scene, so I don't write in order. So I wondered if, as a vocal artist, since you read the book ahead of time, if there are if there's a death in this book in chapter 20, you don't like wait till you're in the mood to read that death, right? You just read it on the whatever day.
What I would want to do is just make sure in my recording day that doesn't come first, because I think that, and there have been times when I've recorded a page and I felt like I wasn't in it, and I'll redo it. And I'll start back, because it takes a minute to get into it. And yeah, so I would want to be recording for a good 30 minutes before I got to something that was really intense I guess.
Interesting.
That's fascinating. You have to warm up. You have to warm
Like
up to the material.
emotionally.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
makes
Like
sense.
emotionally warm up,
To the
I
material.
guess.
Makes total sense.
Because it's one thing if like two people are going to get a coffee together. It's another thing if like somebody witnesses a murder. Like there's
Right.
just a difference in that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also why you read ahead of time, because you know a murder's coming right after
Yeah.
the midpoint or whatever. So the question that leads up to is, so not this year, in 2026, I'm writing a memoir of 20 stories that I intend, it's going to be a performative memoir. So I intend to go to Norman, Oklahoma and perform 2 of the chapters, and I have a book signing after. And then I'll go to whatever, Niagara Falls, and do 2 other chapters and have a book signing.
Oh, that's
And,
so fun.
and so knowing that, I haven't started it yet, but in my brain, I already know that there are certain things that I'm going to do and certain stories that I'm going to tell that are more conducive to performing them as opposed to just sitting there alone by yourself reading them. When you are reaching out to the authors that you want to reach out to, what considerations do you have? Oh, this would make a really good audiobook, as opposed to, I'm not going to reach out to this person because it's a fascinating book about the invention of the mousetrap, but I'm not gonna read about the mousetrap. And what are those considerations? What makes what text makes for a good vocal performance?
Yeah, that's a great question. The cover art. If somebody
Wow.
has great cover art and they have good ratings,
The cereal box and not the cereal.
it's the cereal box.
Oh,
People judge a
man.
book by the cover. I will always read the first chapter before I reach out to somebody. And one thing I'll look for is, does it flow? Like, I think sometimes writing is hard. I don't know how anybody does it, frankly. And I am not a writer. I spend way too long even writing an email. It's stupid. But sometimes really great writing, you just don't notice the transitions. It just feels like all the emotions just flow really easily and it doesn't feel choppy. And that makes it really fun to tell the story. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're telling me that what I put between the covers doesn't even matter.
It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter first.
I'm joking.
If somebody designed their own cover, I'm not even gonna read it. Like I won't even look at it. So yeah.
Yeah.
I have a final question. Do you have a final question, Emily?
No, go for it.
So you just confessed to not being a writer.
Oh no, not a writer.
And you've only been doing this 2.5 years. When you've been doing this 20 years, don't you think you have something to offer to someone who has been doing it 2 years? You have things to offer now for someone who's been doing it 2 months. And so why would you not convey that in a book?
Oh yeah, that's a really interesting question.
I
know, I think that some people are natural teachers and mentors and writers. And I think when you have wisdom, there's lots of different ways to share that wisdom. And mine would be like, even now, like if I know somebody who's new to the profession, I like encouraging them. I like following up with them. I like emailing them and saying, hey, I noticed this, well done. And saying, oh, if you have any questions about equipment, let me know. But it's more on that personal, encouraging basis, not on the broad scale author basis. There is an author who's a very prolific narrator. She's narrated over 1,000 books, and she's a casting director, lots of different things. Her name's Tanya Eby, and she wrote a book about audiobook narration. It's on my TBR, but it's like she's a gifted writer as well. And I just I know what God has gifted me in, and I'm good to lean into that because there's lots of narrators who are also gifted writers, and I'll let them do that.
I was going to push back until you said, okay, I'm going to push back a little bit. But then you said, well, God, I know what gifts God gave me. And that's appropriate. That's an appropriate discernment that everyone should have. I feel like the page that we're talking about, the page on your website for indie authors, I think it does teach. Like we both read it and we understand what you do way better than
good.
before we read that page. And we encourage everyone to go and read that's considering this to go read that page. And but so you can, and that's not a book, it's a single page, a single tab on your website, but you do have the ability to explain things.
I have the ability short form.
Yeah.
I totally interrupted you. I'm sorry. But
No.
I was a philosophy major in college, and the only skill, it taught me several skills, but one of them is to understand dense, complicated information and condense it.
Mhm.
Like 99% of our assignments were like, explain this philosophical thing in 3 sentences. And you had to condense a whole book into 3 sentences, and every word mattered. And like, I can do that. I can explain things or condense things, but the idea of a long form book, I wouldn't know where to start.
I think based on that, so first of all, this is what we should have been talking about for the last half hour, is this skill that you have. I'm just kidding. And but I think what you just said, you're very self-aware, because I think that's evident on that page for indie authors. And so now here's my real final question. I was made that up before when I said it was going to be my final question. When did you realize that you had that gift? The ability to distill it down, an entire book down to 3 sentences.
I mean, when I was in college and had to do it all
What
the
was
time.
the moment? What was the pivot point? What was the actual moment where you're like, man, I'm better at this than other people, or than most people? I don't want to say than everybody.
You know, I don't think there was a particular moment, but I think that it's also what brings you joy. I think you have to lean into what brings you joy in creativity. And like, for example, acting is what brings me joy. Narrating is what brings me joy. And I'm willing to do other things that are a little less comfortable that enable me to do what I like. And I think for writers, it's so important to think like, what exactly is it that brings me joy? And to lean into that, and to just view all those other things that aren't as fun as things that support that thing that you really do love. I don't know if that makes any sort of sense, but
No, yeah,
Absolutely.
totally.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
And again,
Yeah,
that's
I
why
would never
some
do
people are
something-
like, I'm not going to narrate my own book. I'm not like equipped for that, right? I
Like,
think
why
that's
would
the whole
you?
point, is we can't do everything.
No.
So we do
No,
the
you
things
can't.
that we enjoy, and
delegate the rest if you can.
delegate the rest. Yes,
Goodness.
I love it. I think that's a great answer.
Are you ready, Emily Norman, for your call to action to tell our viewers to go do something?
I think that the biggest thing is to really take a moment and celebrate what you're good at, and just be grateful for it. Because I think that so much of what holds us back is a lack of confidence or fear. And I think that when you just know you're good at something and know you have something to offer, it motivates you like nothing else. So I would just take a minute and really just acknowledge the gift you've been given and just thank God for it, and to I don't know, just try to build yourself up so you can share your gift.
Awesome.
I love that so much. And our listeners, I want them to respond to that by sharing what is the thing that you're good at, and like say it proudly and be specific. Like Emily just talking about how she's good at condensing things. Like, what is, if you're like, don't just say you're good at writing, like, what is it specifically that you find that you're good at? And you all can share that in the show notes under writebettertogether.com/podcast. You can find this episode and share there, or you can share on social media wherever we share this episode, or you can email them to us at writebettertogethernow@gmail.com.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Emily.
you, Emily Norman.
You're welcome. It was great
That was
to be
fantastic.
here. Thank you.
And we're back. What a voice. What a set of pipes on that woman.
I did love how, obviously she's a narrator, so her voice comes out very clear.
Yes.
In her little studio with her fabric cover sound barriers or sound absorbers. Anyway, it was so neat hearing from the other side of things. Like,
yeah,
I listen to
emotive.
audiobooks all the time, but I didn't know anything about the business of it.
Yeah, she is very emotive, and I like that she knew that she wasn't a writer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's important. And to know this is the thing that I like to do. This is what I'm going to put my energy into.
Have we talked about the uniqueness of people that identify themselves as writers and the plumber example?
No.
So Jamin, he didn't say this in the webinar, but it's almost not fair that we're writers, right? Because writers write, but a plumber can wake up in the morning.
Oh yes,
and go,
you did mention this.
Okay, well, let me finish my sentence and then I'll move on.
Sorry.
A plumber can wake up in the morning and go, I'm going to write a book, but I can't go, I'm going to go install pipes into a house. It's almost not fair. That's all. But she knows her lane, and she knows what gifts God gave her. So
yeah,
there you go.
It's great.
All right.
Hey, Jon Meyers.
Yes. I've waited so long, a whole week for this.
Guess what? Well, okay. This will be a few questions, I guess. I'll lead you into it. What holiday is coming up?
Mardi Gras?
In 6 days from the day this is published.
6 days? Oh, you know what? We messed something up. We were going to talk about Pulaski Day on the 3rd, and we're recording this on the 4th. Pulaski Day was yesterday.
Oh, no.
And I am not prepared to talk about Pulaski Day today. I totally forgot. Oh my gosh.
We'll have to do it next year.
People, shake it up, baby. The scene from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. That's the Pulaski Day Parade, not the Dingus Day Parade. That has to be cleared up. And now to answer your question, 6 days from now it's not Ash Wednesday, because that's tomorrow.
That is tomorrow. I could have also talked about that, but it's also a little bit too late.
Today's Fat Tuesday. Does that so?
It is Fat Tuesday.
And so
are you going to eat a king cake with a baby in it?
Please, I do not. You always bring cannibalism into. We went so many episodes without any cannibalism, and you had to bring it back. No, I am not eating a baby.
I didn't say you were going to eat it. Nobody eats the baby.
You said, "Are you going to eat a king cake with a baby in it?"
I know, but you don't eat the baby.
Okay, fine. I'm gonna spit out the baby. All right.
Well, what holiday is on March 17th?
Sheila Gunlock's birthday. No,
everybody's gonna have to wear the same color, or else they'll get
green. It's Green Day. Oh no, that's a band. St. Patrick's Day.
It is St. Patrick's Day.
Oh my goodness. I don't know
So
anything about it.
perfect. So what do you know about St. Patrick's Day
I
and St.
know
Patrick?
that St. Patrick, he had so many girlfriends that he had to invent the printing press
Oh my
so that
gosh.
he could make Valentines and mail them out on Valentine's Day. Never trust a man with a beard, because I
So
just totally made that up.
so yeah, so Jon Meyers, I'm just going to assume you don't know anything and I'll get started.
It has something to do with snakes and potatoes.
I'm mostly going to be talking about St. Patrick. And as you just mentioned about Valentine's Day, so we had an episode, a Valentine's Day episode with Jamie Ogle. He's cracking himself up over there. Where she talks about her books that she's been writing about different saints. So she has one on St. Valentine, and now she has one that just came out on St. Nicholas. So I think she needs to do one on St. Patrick.
Oh, you do you?
Because what a guy.
Is that what it should be called? St. Patrick, what a guy.
Yeah.
That's his memoir. I think you should write that one.
Guess what? I
Nope.
accidentally closed all my tabs about St. Patrick.
That's the name of your sitcom. St. Patrick, what a guy.
Oh my goodness. Where's my. Okay, here we go. So I first became interested in St. Patrick as a person because of Veggie Tales, because
Oh.
they did an episode where they tell the story about St. Patrick using a flannel graph.
I missed that one.
And it's very funny. So, but let me tell you about St. Patrick. Did you
Yes.
know that St. Patrick, or we'll just call him Patrick for now, even though I don't think that was his real name, basically, we don't know where he was from. It says he may have been born in Dunbarton, Scotland, Cumberland, England, or in northern Wales, but we do know that at 16, he was sold as a slave to in Ireland. So he was sent to Ireland as a slave at the age of 16. And he was
Did you
forced.
have to be 16 before they could sell you? Or no
I
one wanted
don't.
him when he was only 14?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's an interesting question, but it does seem like very young. But basically, he was forced to work as a shepherd, and it says he suffered greatly from hunger and cold. Fortunately, in 6 years, so he would be 22, he actually escaped and was probably returned to either France or Britain, where he ended up studying to be a bishop. He was consecrated as a bishop at the age of 43. So he learned, basically it's like all this stuff happened. He was kidnapped, he escaped, he came back, but he was very strong in his faith and wanted to study that. So he studied for a long time, became very, very close to God, became significant in the church. But then, so he's like in his 40s now, he had a vision of, it says, all the children of Ireland from their mother's wombs were stretching out their hands to him, and he knew it was a call to go back to Ireland, to the people who had enslaved him, and teach them the gospel. And so that's what he did, and that's what he's known for. He's the patron saint of Ireland, known for bringing Christianity to the country. Obviously, St. Patrick's Day has become a bit more secularized. It's a celebration of Irish culture. But it was originally in 1631. It was originally a day honoring St. Patrick for what he did.
Nothing to do with snakes.
Nothing to do with snakes. And I love this. I'm just going to leave it with this. It says that he had 2 solid qualities that we can remember him for, which is he was humble and he was courageous.
Oh.
Yeah.
Those are very solid qualities.
It really is. And I think it shows in his biography.
Speaking of potatoes, are you watching the Potato Lab on Netflix?
I don't know what that is.
So it's a South Korean, like, you watched Korean
I love
shows.
South Korean TV.
Yeah, so it's a South Korean TV show, but I can't recommend it yet because I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know if it's safe for the entire family. And but but the guy is obsessed with potatoes, just like in the earlier episode where I talked about one of my characters was obsessed with turnips.
Amazing.
I thought you'd be the expert on the potato lab on South Korean TV.
I will also share the VeggieTales flannel graph story in the show notes because it's worth watching. We used to watch it every St. Patrick's Day.
Speaking of
we ate
potatoes,
green eggs.
How come there's no VeggieTale potato?
There is a potato.
There is?
Yeah.
What is he?
He's in this episode. He's
well,
this is the Rocky episode. I don't remember what it's called.
I haven't seen this one, so that's why I don't know there's a potato.
Hold on. VeggieTales Rocky episode. The sumo of the opera. Isn't he a potato? Oh, he might be just a big gourd.
That's the expression I make when I find out my potato is a gourd.
Okay. Apollo Gourd. Oh, he's a gourd. He's not a potato. Okay. I don't have an answer to your question.
Wait, I learned more. I learned about St. Patrick and I learned about Apollo Gourd all in the same Hey Jon Meyers. You got 2 for 1, people, listeners, viewers. Amazing. Speaking of potatoes.
Awesome. Is it time for the final act?
If you'd like to know more about potatoes.
Oh. If you'd like to learn more about potatoes and VeggieTales, you can subscribe to our podcast wherever you're watching. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at writebettertogether.com. Just scroll down. There's a sign up page that will also give you a free sample of our book, by the way. And then you will be updated whenever we do webinars or have new episodes or whatever other updates and opportunities we have. Also, there's so many of different ways of connecting with us. We're on Facebook at Write Better Together Now. That's our Facebook page. If you want to join us there, we have lots of things going on there where you can share what you're working on. You can also go to our Patreon. Look up Write Better Together on Patreon. And we record bonus content every time we record an episode. And we share those on Thursdays with our Patreon listeners. And we also have more things on the tier that you can check out.
Speaking of potatoes, it's not. And this has nothing to do with potatoes.
Is it time for the final act?
Yes. Emily, today you will be playing for this bag of 50 marshmallows. You teased me with these little dinky marshmallows in a cup in a previous episode.
They're hot chocolate. They're for hot chocolate.
I thought the episode was going to be like way distant apart from this episode, but I find out it's like this episode's going to be already time for this one. And so,
how dare you give me sugar when I just got diagnosed with diabetes?
Hey, I can't help it. I was going for Winnie's favorite. You can give them to Winnie.
They're Winnie's favorite snack.
Naturally fat-free. All right. So you can't eat these. I didn't make the connection. All right. So if you get, I'm going to show you instances of something, and there's 2 bonus instances. If you get 95, if you're within a 5% margin of error, either way, I'm handicapping you 5. You get one bag of marshmallows. Okay. I think I'm doing this backwards. If you are within 10% of the right number, I have another bag of marshmallows.
Oh my goodness.
So just so you know, there really is 2. It's not the same. Didn't show the same one twice. And then if you get it exactly right, because we like to make the rules as complicated as possible. So there's 50 marshmallows, 45 marshmallows. So it's like 100 marshmallows. If you get everything right, you look at this, 73 googly eyes.
Ooh, I want that.
How about that? That's what you get if you get everything right. I suppose you want to know.
I want that so I can put it on my plants.
I suppose you want to know what game we're playing.
Yes.
To find that out, I have to share the screen. It's time to play.
Oh my goodness.
Push or pull. I thought there would be a long gap in between the last time we played push or pull, and but here we go.
I can't believe it.
My favorite game.
It's his favorite game, but he hasn't played it yet.
Are you ready?
I thought I found a good one the other day for you to play, by the way, and it didn't work, so I'm not gonna be able to use it.
Yeah, it takes
It's
a
hard.
long time to find someone opening and closing doors. All right, door number 1. Push or pull, Emily Brooks?
Push.
You say this one is a push?
Obviously.
Oh, you're that sure, are you?
It's just a guy. Yep.
Push.
Oh my goodness. This guy opened the door.
Okay, now this one is obvious. I'm giving you this one because it's already cracked open. Unless it's a trick. It could be a trick. All right. Push or pull,
So
Emily
there's a
Brooks?
guy with his hand on a door that is cracked open inward, so I'm going to say push.
All right, let's see how they do.
It's the same door.
There's no floor.
It's the same door.
It is not the same door.
And he swung on it to show that there's no floor underneath.
No, it is not the same door. It's a guy who does crazy things for his kids.
Oh.
All right. Next door.
We should block that off.
All right. Push or pull. It's the same door.
It kind of is the same door. I'm going to say push.
Well, you would be wrong.
Oh my goodness. What the?
Because it wasn't the same door.
He just likes opening doors to empty rooms with no floors.
All right. Also not the same door.
This one's a pull. All of them have the same handle. I was right. Well, I think this one's also a pull because he's already pulling it. That's the same door.
Hey, you guys.
It's the same room for sure.
Stop. All right. What's your score so far?
Well, the last two showed before I could even guess. But I think it was the same two doors. It was one was a push, one was a pull, and he just kept going back and forth.
Okay. So, no, because it was different rooms inside there.
It was the same room.
No, it wasn't. You can watch the replay. Listeners, viewers, watch the replay and let us know if you think it's the same room. What?
Same room.
How can it be the same one? The first two were pushes and the second two were pulls. It can't be the same door.
I think it's the same room, but he's entering from different doors.
Oh, look at you figuring out stuff. All right. Next one. So what are you at? 3 to 4?
I
3
don't
out of
even
4?
know. That's your job.
Oh, okay. I'm going to say you're 3 out of 4.
Okay.
I think you missed one.
I did miss
All right.
one.
Get ready for this one, man. All right. That, friends, is a door.
That is like a bookshelf door, and I think it's going to be a pull.
Have you already looked at these because you were looking to play this game?
No, I wasn't even looking to play the game. I just saw one come up
Oh, okay.
and thought about using it.
Honestly, I don't remember which way this one goes. Here we go. You say it's what now?
I think it's a pull.
Go ahead, open the door.
Oh, I thought he was holding a handle right there.
Yeah.
I was right still, but it opened
You
on
got it right.
it opened on a different side than I thought it would.
Oh, I should have made you pick which side. All right. All right. Last one. For all the marbles. That's not it.
It's the same door.
That's not it. Hold on. All right.
Ooh.
Now what are you going to do?
I'm gonna say pull.
Okay, you want to guess which door it is?
Like which door they're gonna open?
I see 2 handles.
I see 2 handles as well. It could be a sliding door. But would you trick me with a sliding door?
Who knows? Never trust a man with a beard. That's all I can say.
Ah. I'm gonna. So you want me to guess which handle they're opening?
Yeah, just while I since it came out of my mouth.
I
But
mean,
you
I
don't
guess
need to
I'll say
get
the
it right to
first,
win.
the first one, the one that's
Closest to
us.
us.
Yeah.
And then you said pull.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I need to point out a flaw in this game. Every push is a pull from the other side of the and every pull is a push from the other side of the door. So which side so you said pull, which side will the person be pulling from? Out here on the patio or inside the house?
Oh. Okay, here's how I'm going to answer it. I believe the door goes outward to the outside.
Into the patio where we're at.
Yes.
The camera is on the patio. All right. Once again, I don't remember. So here we go. Oh. I think you won, maybe. Oh, now what are you going to do? Door, push, pull, know it all, push, puller.
Well,
Now
I was right for all of them.
Right. Oh, and it kind of slid at the end.
Okay, so I will say the title of the video is how to open and close a bifold door, which I did see but did not let it affect my decision.
Well, so yeah, that wouldn't just
But
because
also I was
bifold, it could be
confused about
push or
what a
pull.
yeah, I don't know what a bifold door is, but apparently it's one that folds like an accordion.
Now we know. I love
Yep.
that game.
Oh my goodness.
So I think you won. Well, I don't know. That was probably 95%. You only missed one thing, right?
yeah.
So these rules are so the prize awarding is so difficult. So I think you win these 2, but you don't win the googly eyes.
Aw. Well, Winnie and John will be happy. John, my husband.
Oh, you didn't say that your John likes marshmallows.
He likes marshmallows in his hot cocoa.
Just Winnie. Before you say the thing. Oh, we have a new character, Marshy.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, Marshy.
There's a
We
marshmallow
couldn't have done
with
without you.
googly eyes. We couldn't have done it without you.